Okay, so for my segment here, it's all about PLB mode analysis. So if you already haven't known, mode analysis actually come from this word mode, which is by Warren Buffett. So what he says is that a truly great business must have an enduring moat that can protect the excellent returns on our invested capitals. So if you take a look at the entire mode analysis, out of these 10 different factors, we have the region disparity effect, we have the renter demand parents attraction effect, the proximity to the MRT station. So all these are consolidated into 7 different steps that we are going to cover today. Yeah, so the moat actually refers to the barrier around the castle, like how well do you set up your defenses in times of war. So these are the 7 different steps of how you should be looking at all the information every time you step into the show flat. We have the project size all the way to disparity effect. So all right, let's talk about the project size first. So every time there is a bigger project, like maybe 500 to 1,000, there's always a lot of hype. But what is the hype about? Because usually when you have a project that has so many units, you have to understand what is the dynamics of how profits are realized. Profits are realized not because, today the valuation went up by 300. Eventually, you have to acknowledge that all new launch will eventually flow into the resale market. And every time a buyer looks into a property that they want to purchase, first of all, is the valuation. So with that, if let's say you have a project that is sized above certain number of units inside, you can guarantee there is a healthy volumes of transaction happening every month, happening every quarter. You have to take note that because of all our regulation, for example, number 1, we have a 3-year seller stamp duty that we need to fulfill. And depending on whether you're buying it for investment or especially for own stay, if you are a parent, most likely when you stay inside a new launch, likely the holding period would be about 6 years or 6 to 8 years. That's mostly covering the primary 1 to 6 phase. So you have the more transactions that is coming in from more number of units in the project. It will then help to increase in terms of the PSF by $1, maybe by $5. If let's say today my unit is sold at let's say 2,000 PSF, then my neighbor would have seen the transaction that happened at 2,000 PSF. He will likely want to transact maybe $10 or like $20 more because like we are up trend moving kind of market. So this is a cycle that you have to know because you need more transaction in turn to increase the valuation of your own condo. So some of the features of big projects is that they have more facilities. They usually have everything until the tennis court. Maintenance fee are usually lower as well because you divide by more number of owners. We do cater to a broader kind of market because usually for a bigger condo, they have like from 1 bedder all the way to 4 or even 5 bedroom types. But the not so the other flip side would be these bigger projects are usually belonging to a 99 leasehold kind of property. Whereas for boutique projects, they are usually more exclusive, more private. Maintenance fee sometimes may be higher because you divide by lesser number of owners, but the flip side is that they are usually freehold in tenure. So just to give you a bit of a context, let's just take a look at what is happening to Alex Residences. This is condo. There is walking distance to the MRT. It has 400 over units. Yeah, so you don't need to score like a 1,000 unit kind of condo because there is only so many condo in Singapore. Not all of them are 1,000 units. So if you take a look at the recent transaction back in year 2022 all the way to 2024 this year, transaction-wise have been moving steadily from 1,008, that was back in 2 years ago. And in 2023, you don't see anything that is at the range of 1,008. Minimally will be 1,009. And fast forward this year, because we are only half a year into, sorry, well, just like a semi-year, we call it semi-annual. The volume of transaction have shown that you now cannot find anything that is less than 2,000 PSF. So let's take a look at schools. In Singapore, everyone knows, okay, primary school, but what is the other kind of educational institution that you need to take note of if you are buying into a new launch? We have primary school, secondary, international, university, and junior college. So the purpose of having this webinar is to help you have a framework to follow, because every time you step into a show flat, you will be bombarded by a lot of different information. Now, by the order of importance, a primary school really holds number one in terms of the priority, because by regulation, you need to stay within 1 or 2 kilometers before you get a chance to have your kid enroll into that particular school. Number 2 would be international school. How come? Because international schools in Singapore, it's very niche. Like, for example, how many international French schools are there? There is only one. So like all the French community have to go there. How many international Australian schools are there? There's only 1 or 2. So everyone will have to gather around that particular school of their nationality. Next, for international school, we also do want to target a bit on the renter part, because sometimes, let's say they are not PR, they might be foreigners, then even if they come into Singapore, they may want to look out for certain properties to rent. So having international school will hit, number 1, the own stay, and also renter demand. Number 3 would be university. University, of course, I'm not saying that students who study in all other uni will definitely buy a property there just to study or just to work there. But for university, we are aiming for the rental, because more often than not, the number of accommodations in the unit itself may not meet the demand of the number of students there. So over here, we're talking about the rental. The rest of them, the other tertiary, junior college, poly, ITE, they are still important. They do contribute in their own way, but in terms of the priority, I would set them as the lowest. So just a brief idea of the top 10 most popular primary school as of this year. So you need to know that year on year, there might be some changes in terms of the ranking. It will be good for you to know from top 1 all the way to 20 at least. So the idea is that if, let's say, you are near a popular primary school, like most likely or not, it will definitely drive in terms of the popularity. You definitely see increased demand. Because of that, if, let's say, you have more transaction, it will eventually drive up in terms of the PSF.
My segment is on stack analysis, where we are taking advantage of the mispricing of developers so that you can have a margin of safety when you're entering into the specific unit. It's all about buying the correct unit, which can potentially help you to exit faster and also increase the amount of potential profits up to 6 figures. So let's look at this case study, 3-bedroom utility, 1076 square feet in 2019. This is how the layout looks like, and we have a quick 2 choice within this project. So either stack 31, you are an internal pool facing unit, or you can choose stack 65, which actually have a landed facing. You see past the strata homes within a development and you get a very nice view. Importantly, sometimes like we are specifically focusing on like 0432 as well as 1165. So one question like sometimes people will ask will actually be 4th floor can buy or not? It's very hard to exit. It's going to be, like from a feng shui standpoint, there will be a lot of exit audience that might have concern. So let's take a look. Over here will be this. 0432 purchase price was 1.555 million and 1165 was 1.634 million. So there was a price disparity of close to 79k, 5%. Which one is it more for which? Should we be going for the lower price unit or actually the better facing, more premium pricing unit? The first unit, which is the premium facing, landed facing unit, it actually went up from 1.6 million all the way to 1.9 million. So this actually gives a decent healthy profit, which the other unit, which is actually the pool view facing, managed to secure a similar exit price point. So if you look at the absolute profit margin, one is at 276,000 versus the other one, which is actually about close to $356,000. So this is actually a disparity in terms of profit margin of close to 80k at 29%. Right? So when we do a stack analysis successfully, number one, we can avoid leaving money on the table. And of course, what if I tell you that sometimes, like as neighbors, you try to compare, hey, you sold your unit already, I also sold my unit. And what happens is that like we want to know that when you're sharing about the profit, you realize that, hey, actually your neighbor made probably like 6 figures more than you, or like selling at a similar profit, buying a smaller unit. So let's take a look at this. 2-bedder, making similar profit as a 3-bedroom in the same development. If we're looking at this 2-bedder specifically, entry price 1.143 million. right? So it's way lower than the original entry price of 1.63 million in the previous study of a 3-bedder. And the exit price of the 2-bedder at 1.4 million actually used a similar return of $257,000. So this, of course, from a percentage standpoint, is higher in terms of return at 23% because it starts with a smaller kind of like entry quantum. So this is one of the things that how we can actually choose the correct unit when it comes to profitability. So of course, how do we turbocharge your success? There are 3 things that we're going to cover. Mainly, why is stack analysis important? How do we use the framework called CHOPE to help you decide and in a very systematic framework which unit that you should be buying? And lastly, when is the right time to do a switching strategy? Having the right stack analysis framework will allow us for like a smoother exit. And stack analysis is all about 3 main things. We are looking at facing and the view that we'll be looking, which is mainly what I'll be covering today, combined with the different unit type in terms of the ease of exit, plus about the floor plan layout that just now Marc has covered. So there are a lot of facings that of course you can choose. You know, like when buying a development, you can be facing industrial, office, HDB view, private view. You can have like views of MRT track. We can look at unblocked view, internal pool view, bin chute view, etc. All these, how is it going to impact our exit standpoint next time? Of course, like unblocked views, like landed facing, sea facing, all these will actually give a different impact. So let's take a look at this case study. 904 square feet, 3-bedder. So if today we are shopping for a 3-bedder, and there are actually 5 different facing that you can choose from: entrance, condo, pool facing, HDB facing, as well as another pool facing that is like shorter in terms of like the tower to tower distance. Which one will you actually choose, right? So of course, everybody will have their own thinking. Okay, maybe I want to be closer to entrance or the side gate because the walking distance to MRT station is a bit shorter, or I want to maximize the block-to-block distance within my development or externally to the outside development. So what happens is this. If I were to show you price as well, will that actually change your initial decision on like which facing that you will choose? So if I were to sum up over here, number 1, the lowest and most attractive entry price is the HDB unit in this case study, 904,000 for a 3-bedder. And the one that gets you the most premium view probably is the 60-meter pool view. It is second highest price at 967,000. So in this scenario, knowing the price will the kind of like choices change for yourself. But what we want to know is that fast forward for this case study, 4 years later, because everybody buy a new launch, and when it comes to the TOP stage, which one actually have a smoother exit and which one actually have higher profitability. So over here, summarize, I have already put down all the sale prices for all the individual units for the different facing. And for the ease of your comparison, I've calculated the profit for you. And most importantly, the summary of the ranking of which one got the most profitability. So did the unit that you chose just now actually you one of the better profit? So of course over here in this scenario, the pool facing 60-meter kind of distance actually have the best profitability, followed by the other shorter distance pool facing, and then followed by the entrance facing unit, then HDB, as well as followed by condo. So this will be actually the kind of like sequencing if you want to be focusing on the different stacks to look at. So of course, this is not the takeaway. The key idea here is to understand that for different projects, every project is unique in terms of the land shape, in terms of how the towers can be structured. Developers have their own way of choosing which is a better stack and which is a better way to price and how much disparity in terms of pricing gap that they want to achieve for the different facing. So different developers will price differently, and we also want to understand the price disparity for the same layout across the different facing can be between $70,000 to $150,000. Okay, so of course the next takeaway is to understand that it is not about buying the cheapest unit, because the cheapest unit did not become the most profitable. So in this case, the HD one was the easiest to enter at $904,000. However, it is only ranked number 4 in this scenario, right? So what we want to do is to have a very systematic framework to choose the correct stack, and we are using the CHOPE framework today. So what does it stand for? C is for compare and rank, H is for homogeneous, O is for opportunities, P, prevent landmines, and E is to have an excellent choice. So first off, compare and rank. So imagine there are two different ways to buy a new launch. You can be buying a new launch at the total preview stage where you are showing up and you don't know what is the price of the project. Right, so that means that the compare and rank step 1 is very, very important to you because you need to project and think of how developers will be pricing their unit, what is the potential value disparity, and how can you actually rank it such that you can take advantage of the best unit when it is time for you to choose the unit. Or you are in the post-launch phase where the pricing is a little bit more transparent. You know exactly the price disparity between the different phasing, and now you can make a better decision from there.
We're going to be diving into a portfolio expansion strategy. So this is going to be something that's very interesting because we want to be able to plan in terms of our journey when we're investing in terms of property-wise. And at the same time, we also want to see, hey, what's our plan, 5 to 10 years down the road as well. So this is going to be something that we're going to diving into. So we're going to be kickstarting with 3 very common property types that we usually see during our consult sessions. And these property types could also be you that's sitting online watching this webinar right now. It could also be your friends or family that was also that you know of. So what we want to do here is that we want to share a couple of frameworks here with you so that you can also take this back home with you in years to come as well. So we're going to start with one very common profile that we usually see in our consult sessions, which is John and Michelle. So John and Michelle, they're age 33, they have about 9K income each, and at the same time, they're married. They bought a BTO about 5 years ago. So right now they're thinking, hey, it's probably time for me to explore kind of like upgrading or maybe, what is my next journey route that I can take in terms of my property portfolio expansion. They have dabbled into stocks before and they're wondering, hey, does property make sense or does stock make sense as well? So we're going to diving into also the typical journey route that most of us will also take, which is of course the BTO route. So usually, let's say if you were to purchase a BTO, in your early or late or mid 20s, and you 5 years later in your 30s, you would see additional of about 300K kind of profit margins. If you were to stay in this journey type and actually explore the next sort of until the age 65 years with a very general 3% per annum kind of growth for our property profit margin, we can actually see that in the end we'll end up with about 1.1 mil kind of retirement sum in the future as well for us to kind of retire as well as for us to right size. So we want to see how we can actually plan this journey a little bit better so that we can also use this time frame and use our property as one of our retirement assets. Right, so let's break it down for John and Michelle. They're age 33, 9K income each, and they have seen healthy profits in their HDBs, 300Ks, and they can actually explore around the range of 2.5 mil. So usually how will we plan in terms of this property portfolio is that easily they can also choose to explore probably a 3-bedder new launch in today's context. And I've actually pulled up some of the numbers down here, right, to also understand what are some of the profit margins that have been created throughout these transactions. At the same time, what are some of the sort of down payment that they have actually paid towards this. So if you look on the screen right now, we can actually see that I've calculated about 29% down payment. So that's the initial down payment that they have made when they kickstart this investment. And usually a down payment's at 25. I've just added a bit 4% due to our stamp duty here as well. And we can see just in the span of 5 years, the RI gains have actually close to about 80 to 150%. So whatever money they have put down, they essentially see almost double up in the next 4 to 5 years here as well. And of course, they can also choose to explore what we call a twin engine approach, which is that this is a very beautiful engine because they can choose to have their equities actually parked onto their own stay properties, which is number 1 here. The next, of course, is you have another sort of name and value that you can park into sort of an investment kind of assets. So they can still sort of enjoy their own stay assets while it's appreciating, while the other asset classes actually allows them to collect a sense of rental income. In the future, they can choose to also combine these two assets and actually purchase a larger kind of asset classes here as well. So we can also see that for the 1 and 2 bedder new launches, they have also seen healthy gains throughout the years if the selections are made correctly as well. And of course, we can see here in our next slide segment is that we also want to highlight what are some of the average profit margins that the new launches have seen as well. And this graph actually tells us a different kind of stories here because we can actually see that the 1 to all the way to the 4 to 5 bidders, they have different profit margins that were made throughout the years. And actually this also shows us that in the future, let's say you were to choose to invest in the 3-bidder right now, in the future of 4 to 5 years time, the 4-bidder pricing might also be something of a higher range because the profitability have also increased tremendously throughout the years. Right? So I think this goes to show that if let's say you have the capabilities to maybe explore a larger bedroom type, it might be worthwhile for you to consider as well. So we can also see for 4 bidders profit margin wise, the RI are absolutely fantastic because we can see 100% in terms of RI gains, and the 4 bidders just have made like massive gains. Whatever they have put in, they have essentially doubled up as well. Right. So let's also bring us to a couple of case studies that we want to share with you here today. So if we can just rewind the clock, back to 2019, this Punggol Emerald HDB cluster has just reached its MOP as well. And this is a fantastic location because it's just right beside the MRT station, tons of amenities that's there as well. If you do choose to stay in this place, I think you're going to enjoy it. But let's say, for example, the audiences or the buyers or the sellers actually choose to dispose of the place in 2019, they would have sold the place around 400 to 600K, depending on whether you're 4-room or 5-room HDB flats. And let's say they were to choose to actually invest in a 3-bedder new launch, back then riverfront residences, we can actually see that the 3 bedders are priced around the 1.15 to about $1.4 million. So let us also fast forward the time, and we can actually see at 2023, those that have invested in these riverfront residences the 3 bedders have made about 400 to 500K because the 3-bedder pricing have actually grown to about 1.5 to $2 million here. So at the same time, we're going to explore what does Punggol Emerald have done, right? Punggol Emerald still increased during this time, and they have increased about 200K. So this also means that if we were to rewind back the next slide, is that we can actually see simply by switching in terms of the portfolio strategy plans, we can almost see double the profit margins within the same kind of time frame here as well. And I know what you guys might be thinking is that, hey, the example over there was made during COVID. Of course, COVID was a different scenario. We also want to explore and say what happens, before COVID. How does the property market actually perform? So let us also have a look. We can see Sembawang Green HDB has just reached its MOP in 2014 to 2015. Now this is a very interesting kind of time frame because back in 2013, TDSR was just implemented, which is the total debt servicing ratio. So this, of course, limits the amount of loan that buyers can actually choose to invest in the next home. So this, of course, affects in terms of the property price indexes because back then, the 3 property price indexes, HDB, landed, as well as condo, have seen a dip with that. So if let's say for these owners here, they would have sold off the place in 2015 when the market was still recovering, they would have sold it around 300K kind of ranges, right? So if they would choose to invest in a new launch back then, North Park Residences was just launched in 2015. Now, if you have a look at the screen over here, the PSF ranges are around the 1,002 to about 1,003 kind of price ranges. Now, back then, this kind of per square foot pricing is going to be something a bit aggressive because a lot of people on the ground also do feel that this is kind of high, especially for a project that's in the north area as well. Now, if for these audiences, if they still dare to kind of pull the trigger, right, we can actually see that throughout the 2015 all the way to 2019, before the COVID times, these audiences still make the 200 to 300K kind of like profit margins here as well. So what happened to Sembawang Green HDB? Let us also have a look. Is that in 2019, the pricing still seems to maintain around the same kind of price figure. So this is a very interesting kind of time frame, right? Let me just pull up the entire timeline and just show you, what has just transpired over here, because essentially is that when they reach their MOP stage, they would have sold maybe around 350. If they switch the asset classes in the next sort of 4 to 5 years time, right, they can actually see about 300K kind of gains already. And that also means that if they were to just take the pure gains alone, right, and they want to buy back into Sembawang Green, let's say they really like the area, it gave them a lot of memories in the past, they can simply take the gains and actually fully pay the HDB house over there.